Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a new episode of the ThyGap podcast. It's a new Thursday, and so it is a ThyGap Thursday. My name is Bogus Noog, and with me, as always, is
Being Brewed. Welcome, everybody. It's a Thursday. I hope you're all enjoying the Thursday.
and this week we are doing patience. It's not easy.
Patience, it's a virtue.
Yeah, good things come to those who wait. So, Brood, as is our want, before we get into the world famous It's Not Easy template, we also have to make mention of our award winning socials.
So excited.
So, very quickly now, on Instagram, we are,
@_ThyGap,
on Twitter and Vero,
@ThyGap,
and our email is
mindthygap@gmail.com.
that's it.
It's simple.
And sweet. All right, now before we get into the actual episode, we do have a couple of shout outs, bro.
Yeah, let's do that.
So the first one came to us through email from Samita.
Uh-huh.
And Samita says she recently started listening to both of our podcasts, the English podcast as well.
Okay.
And she says we have high IQ, EQ, and SQ.
Wow, using the terminology of ThyGap.
Yeah, this is a reference to the
Empathy.
It's Not Easy episode.
Yes.
Check it out.
And share.
And regarding empathy, bro,
Yeah.
Samita, what she had to say was, in theory, it is easy to understand, but very difficult to practice.
Hence, it's not easy, Samita. It's there in the title.
Yeah, it's in the name.
It's in the name.
One method is to use, Samita continues.
Okay.
One method is to use heart in every thought and action, as heart is the source of love, peace, courage, wisdom, joy, etc. It sounds cliche, but listen to your heart is the right way.
Samita, we are not here to figure out who's right and wrong.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we appreciate you sharing your mind share, if we can say that, right? And yes, everybody has to use their heart. But the big question is, what is heart?
Yeah. And we also appreciate a few suggestions for new topics that he gave us.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Which I think some of them we covered.
Yeah, some of them.
We've covered courage.
Yeah.
Yeah, heart is, it's a very debated kind of definition, if I can say that. If we really have to understand what is heart or following the heart. We have done an episode called It's Not Easy Intuition. You should really check that out. We don't know if, was it It's Not Easy model or it's just
No,
intuition?
just
It's just intuition.
Yeah.
It's a long format that we did. We didn't go world famous at that point yet.
Yeah.
So check out intuition and you might see us seconding some of your views there.
Yeah. There's other topic ideas like love, peace,
Yeah.
wisdom,
Yeah,
joy.
peace is something that we decided to do only after we get the Nobel Peace Prize. But up till then, you have to wait for it. Be patient for
Yeah.
that episode.
But thanks a lot, Samita, for writing in.
Big thank you, Samita, for actually not just writing to us, Bogus, but also like specifying,
Yeah.
which is very rare. Not a lot of our diehard fans actually like elaborate on what they liked.
Yeah.
We urge our audience to elaborate on things.
Yeah, be specific.
Yeah, it's not easy elaboration. We'll soon get to that.
Yeah. Our next shout out, bro.
Yes.
Is-
Samita, thank you so much for writing.
Yes.
Keep writing. Keep sharing.
Our next shout out is via Twitter by Heaven Lawn.
Wow.
Yeah.
The name itself.
Exactly.
Heaven's Lawn. Heaven Lawn. Sounds like one amazing bar very close to our place, like
Yeah.
Malakpet or someplace.
Yeah.
With like, I can already imagine neon lights and all,
Yeah, exactly.
which spells out Heaven Lawn.
So Heaven Lawn, who's actually a listener of our Telugu podcast, recently started listening to our English podcast as well.
Very good. It's never too late.
Yep. It looks like he started with empathy.
Oh, nice.
So-
Good choice.
Yeah, he had a question about that. How do you respond when you're trying to reason with someone but they're not listening? For example, the anecdote about your neighbor, his empathy/common sense kicked in late. But what if it feels like his empathy or common sense is not going to kick in anytime soon?
Yeah, change houses. That's the response. Change your neighbors if it's not working out, just like a job.
Yeah.
Heaven Lawn, I don't know what your real name is, but Heaven Lawn works well. You should really apply for a liquor license, by the way, just in case. But it's a great question.
Which, we've answered
We've answered to you.
comprehensively
So, yeah, it's
in the
person.
Twitter DMs.
In person.
Yeah.
And we like to keep that confidential. We'll not share because I don't know how many of them have the same neighbors as you.
Exactly.
Unless all your neighbors are listening to ThyGap.
Yeah. And if they're not, What the hell are you doing, Heaven Lawn?
Heaven lawn.
You have one
Invite
job.
invite them onto your lawn. You
Yeah.
know, do like a group hearing or whatever.
Exactly.
Hey, but thanks for writing and thanks for asking a question also.
Yeah, and thanks for your interest in the English podcast. So, if you guys have any other questions about these topics that we do, feel free.
Yeah, write to us, man. Like what? It's a two-way street, you know.
Yep.
Yeah, we are open to criticism or suggestions.
Yep. And also funding.
And the main thing.
Main thing.
Main thing is funding, guys.
Yeah.
Remember the word funding.
So that's it for the shout outs, bro.
Yeah, that's great. I think this is increasing, which is a great news for us.
Yep.
Both, especially Telugu, obviously there are a lot of takers.
Yes.
But it's good to see that even they're trickling down onto the English podcast and listening to us, which is not really like you mentioned, it's not a popcorn entertainment kind
it's
of
not. It takes
format.
effort actually to get
It
through.
takes a lot of patience
Patience.
to
It's not
listen
easy.
to listen to our English podcast, which can be a cultural shock for a lot of our Telugu audience also. Like they must be expecting, like, oh, there must be a lot of jokes here,
Yeah.
which there are, by the way.
There
We are a funny
Yeah.
podcast.
But they're situational.
Yeah,
They're-
it's philosophical jokes.
Probably dark
Yeah,
also.
you need to listen to the episode with your lights on
Yeah.
to get the joke.
Yeah.
But anyways, thanks both Heaven Lawn and Samita for writing to us.
Mm-hmm. Onwards now, bro, to the world famous It's Not Easy template.
Yes.
Which, as always, we begin with the context. How are we going to talk about patience in this episode? Let's just start off with the dictionary meaning, bro.
Let's just do it like
Colloquially
checkbox.
available on the internet, the dictionary meaning is
Yeah.
patience is the capacity to accept or tolerate delay, problems, or suffering without becoming annoyed or anxious.
Dictionaries should start becoming funnier, because that's the only feedback I have. They have to be more exciting. That's when people will start going to dictionaries. Otherwise, it's useless.
Yeah, I think that was not so satisfactory, and that's why
At all.
just under that, there's also another section that says people also ask, what is the real meaning of patience?
See?
Exactly.
Language, it's not easy, guys. Like, we did
Yeah.
an episode. Go check that out.
And over here, there's a slightly different take on it. It says, for what is the real meaning of patience? The answer is tolerant and even-tempered perseverance.
Perseverance is a good word.
Yeah,
I think that makes a lot more sense.
exactly. Tolerant and even-tempered perseverance, the capacity for calmly enduring pain, trying situations, etc.
Yeah. I think this makes a lot more sense, a
Yeah.
little more closer to what we were talking about. Perseverance is a great word.
Yeah,
I think because it is directional. Like, you're not just perseverant to nothing,
yeah,
right? It is towards a certain goal.
Yep.
And that is what even I was talking about, right? I mean, the way I look at patience is not just sitting back and waiting or not just absorbing things.
right.
When you're consciously putting in an effort into any activity and just doing it for the sake of perfection or excellence, not really worried about the result or not really worried about what people say and all those things, that for me is patience.
Right.
Patience is not just, oh, I've been waiting for my friend for 30 minutes without getting angry. Nah, that's not really patience. That's like you being nice to your friend.
Yeah.
You know, but the example that I give that I can think of right now is you set up a goal in life and you know you have to reach the goal, but you don't know the path. You don't know how to reach there. You're just figuring out everything bits and pieces. The whole process of you working consciously, putting effort and, you know, going through the ups and downs of the journey, but still persevering towards reaching the goal. That whole act is patience.
Right.
That's how I look at patience personally. Do you have another way of looking at it, Bogus?
No, that pretty much covers it.
Yeah. That's because we are ThyGap. We think alike,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So there is no devil's advocate here. there is no debate. There is just like basically you rub my back, I rub your back kind of a scenario.
I mean, there is when there is a difference of opinion, we do have debates. For
Yeah,
example,
which we don't record, unfortunately.
for example, we did an episode called Loneliness versus Solitude,
Oh yeah.
which was inconclusive. Like we never really agreed in the end about where we were going.
Yeah.
So it kind of just ended that way.
Yeah.
I looked up the etymology of this word, patience,
Okay.
and it goes back to, as expected, a Latin term,
The bloody Latins.
which has meanings like bearing, supporting, suffering, enduring, permitting, tolerant, but also firm, unyielding, hard.
Yeah, this Latin's got brains, bro.
Yeah.
We need to accept that.
Yeah, they combine these two.
Yeah.
And that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Especially the firm, unyielding, hard part.
Which is exactly why I feel that we are moving away from the conventional definitions.
Yeah.
And we are using these words loosely as a tribe.
Yeah.
You know, and that is precisely why ThyGap is so important in people's life, because it's going to bring them back to the basics.
Yeah. Definitions.
At least that's the effort.
It's not easy.
Definitions is not easy.
Coming
guys.
soon.
Yeah, coming like really soon.
Yeah.
Provided once we are sorted about what the definitions are that we want to talk about. But nevertheless, you see the problem, right? Like when you go that one level deeper, you really get the juice of, okay, this is exactly what it means.
Yeah.
And even in empathy, if you remember, it said like in feel.
Right.
Right? And what it meant is what was not clear.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised you remember that.
I remember a lot of things, because just because I speak so dumbly doesn't mean I'm dumb.
Right.
You know, the toughest act is to be dumb.
All the tattoos on your chest, suggest something different.
Let's not reveal each other. Let's not talk about your tramp stamps now. Okay. The amount of real estate you have on your tramp.
It's just one butterfly.
The stamp. So you say the butterfly is alone, but what surrounds the butterfly? Let's not go there.
Right.
But anyways, bogus. Enough of
all this.
Debating for the sake of debating.
Let's move on to what is it about patience that's not easy, Brute?
Bogus, let me give you a very intellectual approach to it. Okay. The first thing, if you take anything in life, the toughest part is to know where to apply it. What I mean by that is, we have a lot of tools as an individual, right? We have a lot of skills, we have traits, we have qualities, we have values, the whole 9 yards. But where we really lose track of all this is when we don't know where to use what.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing with patience. Now, there is this myth, or, I don't know what else to say. I don't know the complicated words. You fill in the gaps. That, be patient.
Yeah.
It's a blanket statement.
Yes.
And that is idiotic according to me. You cannot give a blanket statement to anything, if you're worth your salt, or if you really want to mean something with it, right? So is the case with patience.
Yeah.
So the first off the bat, what I feel is we quite don't know the distinction of where to use patience and where not to use patience.
Yeah.
Like I broadly look at the different tasks and activities that we do in life to fall in 3 different categories from a perspective of patience.
Okay.
One is where you're patient about it.
Right.
There are few activities where you need to be patient. You need to marinate and all that.
Yes.
This is another category of activities where you need to be impatient.
Yes.
Where, like you mentioned, like these things are the stuff that you were supposed to do it as of yesterday.
Yeah.
But then procrastination is another way,
Yeah.
right? Then there's another third category where you let things happen as they happen. You don't really not worried about to be patient or impatient and all. You just go with the flow kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Right? Broadly, this is how your life is based, right? These are, in a day, if you look at it, there are different activities which you do where few are like having a bigger picture, they connect to the bigger, journey of your life.
Yeah.
Then there are few which kind of make your life easier on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And then there are a few activities which you do to become better, or, that stuff which create a good environment for yourself kind of activities, right? So the first distinction is the toughest step, which is where do I be patient in life? What are the things that I need to apply patience in? And what are the things I don't need to apply patience in?
Yeah.
And what are the things where I have to actually go the other side of patience, to the other end of the spectrum, and be impatient about these things? If you can get to that situation where you write it down on a pen and paper saying that, hey, okay, this is what I want to do in general. This is what I have to do today. And these are the things that I have to do as of yesterday. Then you are in a much better position to actually invest your energies from a patient's perspective into very specific things.
Right.
And that is really, really important first step. Then you will get to know that, okay, you need to be patient. It means that not just generally, but very contextually.
Yeah. And that's the slippery slope, right? When everyone talks about patience, the blanket statement, like you said, the biggest misinterpretation that people tend to take away because of the lack of articulation is, I just need to be patient, period.
Yeah.
So as a person, I need to be patient in everything in life.
Yeah.
Whereas it's not that. The fact of contextual requirement of patience is at any given point, there would be 3 or 4 things that we have to be patient about, 3 or 4 things that we have to go with the flow, and 3 or 4 things that we have to be really impatient about.
Yeah.
Like things that we all have in our list that we needed to start correcting yesterday itself.
Right.
So this is a big thing, yeah.
Yeah, and I also want to like add in a little more flavor to this statement. The moment when we hear somebody say like, "Be patient, bro," right?
Yeah.
We somehow, for some reason, take the reference of patience in a person who we know externally rather than our own reference of patience.
Yes.
You know, I don't think we do that activity enough of trying to understand how we are in a patient zone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we don't know how we look like when we are patient. I mean, it happened to me quite a few times early on where I felt like, okay, just by absorbing what people are telling me and not reacting was being patient.
Right.
Which much later on I realized like, no, that's not the case. In fact, for all I care, I ruined my own position or my own chances by being patient.
Yeah.
You know, by allowing things to be, by being tolerant.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm not in agreement to patience equating to tolerance.
Right.
You know, you don't have to be tolerant to what people say.
Yeah.
That is something that I also want to say. Like when people say patience, the immediate question I get is like, in what? When you ask me to be patient, in what do you want me to be patient? Do you want me to be patient about the whole conversation? Do you want me to be patient about my life? Like, where exactly am I going to be patient? And this is another thing. Like, we don't ask those questions. We don't ask those follow-up questions to such statement. Right? 9 out of 10 times I've heard people say like, dude, be patient. Like, you think I don't know how to be patient? Or do you think I'm not patient already? I've waited for 3 weeks. You look at, I've not said anything for the last 20 minutes.
Right.
Nah, that's not patience. Like, you know, really somebody has to break it down. And people should ask questions on what exactly they have to be patient on. Only then they will get a picture of, okay, fine, you know, okay, these are the things where I should like probably be a little more cautious about or whatever is the scenario.
Yeah.
So the bottom line, the first, it's not easy, is the contextual aspect of it. Like how can you be contextually patient and how can you identify other aspects where you don't need to invest patience there?
Yeah.
Just let it happen.
Yeah. And also the other aspect where you should absolutely go the opposite way. Be impatient and get started right away.
Yeah. Impatience for me, Bogus, is the only solution for procrastination.
Yeah.
And I don't see any other way you can deal with procrastination. I'm not saying procrastination is right or wrong, but I feel if you really want to solve procrastination in yourself, somehow trigger impatience in you.
Yeah, there is an aspect of impatience which cures
that.
In that
exactly.
moment. And one of the things that I learned from my father that stuck with me also is he's always had this philosophy of being very impatient with debt. You know, so there's a saying in Telugu that translates to being in debt or being on loan. Is that the right way to say?
Owing someone.
Owing someone some money. You should feel like it's a snake around your neck. You know, and so when there's a snake around your neck, you're in a hurry. Like you can't wait to get it off your neck, basically.
Yeah.
So,
or you can say like it's like having Bogus in the room. You know, it has the same impact.
Sure, not at all relevant. But
it's a great analogy.
I'm a
Bogus.
very pleasant presence, bro.
So is the snake when it's doing nothing.
Yeah. Except when it starts to.
Which is what I said.
So that I thought was interesting. I mean, quite an interesting way to look at, you know, impatience, which is, okay, you're applying something that we tend to associate with waiting or tolerating or suffering, that kind of a thing. But you're applying that to a debt situation or a financial liability.
Yeah.
Where you're like, even though there is no immediate pressure, like if you just took a loan and you said, okay, I'll return it to you in 6 months.
Yeah.
Usually people don't start feeling that burn until it is like the 5th month in or the 6th month in.
Right.
But the way he looks at it is from day one itself, he starts feeling that,
Yeah,
you know, and it doesn't stop.
Yeah.
Because he wants to get it off him because he wants to feel free again.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've taken a leaf out of his book. And if I'm ever in the situation where I owe money to someone, that's always like how I look at it now.
Yeah.
With
The
extreme impatience.
apple fell far from the tree, Bogus, in your case. But I just want to plug perspective. It's not easy.
Yeah.
Right? Because what your father just said, it's a fantastic thing. And I've always been an advocate of never jump to a conclusion of a quality or a trait to be a good or bad thing
Yeah.
unless you really understand how that thing is being used by that individual.
Yes.
Right? I mean, there are a lot of examples, like top of my head, ego and narcissism.
Yeah.
Everybody associates these things with like
In
a
a
negative trait.
Yeah.
Right? But it's not. According to me, if you look at it from that person, and this is where empathy comes, by the way, right?
Yeah.
If you're able to understand how they're actually utilizing that particular quality,
Yeah.
if that is being done for their own betterment, then how can we say that it's a wrong thing?
Yeah. And we've gone into a great detail in ego. It's not easy. Check it out.
And share.
It's actually a great episode the way it came out.
Fantastic episode. We didn't even wanted to do that episode that day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, coming back to patience, it's not easy.
So yeah, the biggest takeaway of this point is just the awareness that it is contextual. It is not a one size fits all blanket treatment to all the things in your life.
Yeah.
But some things require it, some things require the exact opposite, and some things require neither. Like go with the flow.
Yeah, and also remember that patience can be damaging.
Yes.
If used wrongly.
Yeah.
Right? On the long term.
Yeah.
And I have come across this a lot of times where, again, I'll go to that word tolerant because I've come across few people who've been those kind, who just are tolerating everything that's happening with them.
Yeah.
And 5, 6 years or 7 years down the lane, when I went back to those people or like, I bumped into these people, it's great thing for you that they are tolerant, right? Because you can do whatever the fuck you want.
Exactly.
To do. But then when you see in the future what they have turned into, the price that they have paid for being tolerant, you feel almost guilty and responsible for their situation, where they've lost track of stuff and they're no more having that energy or
I mean, on your part, if you're not dead inside completely, then you feel that, yes.
Unless you're a serial killer, yes, I get. But on a normal sense, I'm talking about general population bogus.
Right.
I'm not talking about you and me who are like outliers on the other side of the spectrum. But you get the point, right? Like patience and all these things. So you really need to put that effort in understanding these things. And why we are doing this is exactly that, to open up that every quality or trait is not unidimensional.
Yeah.
Everything has like multidimensional.
Yeah.
Personally, I feel we don't speak about these things enough, which is why there is such misinterpretation of understanding of these things.
Yeah, I feel like we don't speak about these things specifically enough.
Yeah.
Like it's always blanket terms, always vague umbrella terms. Because the other side of tolerance, you take it too far, people will not respect you anymore.
Yeah.
You get treated like doormats.
You're taken for granted.
You're just taken for granted.
Yeah.
And you look to be weak, actually.
You become weak.
You become weak
eventually. So again, the first step is to understand where to be patient in life and where not. And if I have to paint a picture, bogus, anything which is worth doing in life, right? How I classify is anything that is worth, where I really, really crave for, where I really dream of, is where I use patience.
Yeah, and when you say anything that is worth, you don't mean that as an objective kind of a template parameter.
No.
It is a very subjective
subjective thing. It can range from me buying a good watch for myself to me establishing making something of myself as an individual.
Yeah.
Right? It can go from supremely materialistic and objective things to, it can go to philosophical, like, all those things like, oh, I want to be known as this guy.
Yeah.
So all those things which really mean something, right? As an individual for you, something which I'm doing for myself is where I'm very patient.
Right.
For my own excitement, my own, dopamine hit or my own self of accomplishment and all, I am very patient in those things. Yeah. I don't hurry up or, I'm very conscious about those aspects day in, day out. There's always that, some part of my day which is dedicated for these things.
Yeah. And the fact that the metric of, in this case, patience, has to not be taken from someone else, but it has to be subjectively applied. You have to come up with the metric yourself.
Yeah.
That is something you talked about in the wealth episode.
Yeah.
In some detail. And it's also something we talked about in Measure of Man as well.
Measure of Man, we spoke so much, we did 2 episodes.
Yeah, those 2 episodes actually encompass all the topics.
All the topics.
Like, I mean, you pretty much apply all the topics.
So for the first time on ThyGap, I think we should tell our audience not to listen Measure of Man first. You listen to it at the end, after you cover everything.
Yeah. So I think this covers the first point, that it is contextual,
Very contextual.
that you just be aware. At the same time, there are multiple variations of patience that you need to apply.
Yeah, and it's not a blanket thing.
Yes.
It's not a blanket thing. It's not like, oh, you're identified as someone who's patient. That's a red flag according to me.
Right. Yeah. Coming to now, what else is not easy about patience to get? The first question that comes to mind when we think about this topic, patience, when we think about addressing it or approaching it, is
Do we have patience?
that is one. But then the other thing is, if I'm starting on something, if I'm just having a goal now, or if I'm looking forward to something, how do I exactly know what is the limit of that patience? Like, how long should I be patient?
Oh,
Actually.
if only I had a dime every time I thought about it. I would have been about $15 richer.
Right.
How much is a dime, by the way?
God knows.
Okay. Anyway, US dollar is falling.
Yeah.
Great point. Yeah, I completely second that. The
That
biggest,
was not a point, that was a question.
yeah, I mean, like, let me put it in my way. My articulation is much more understandable by common audience. I never know how long I have to be patient. I never know the shelf life of patience. And this has happened in my practical life, right? Once I've decided that, I'll give you an example, okay?
Right.
So there was this really crazy watch that came out and I wanted to buy it. It was the perfect watch. I think I've already spoken about this example in Wealth or something.
Yeah.
It was a perfect watch. It was in the budget. I mean, it ticked all the boxes and all. But still, I was not getting that feeling of, okay, I should just jump on it and buy it. I kind of pulled myself back and I was not getting that feeling. And I waited for about a year and a half, almost to a point where the model would have been obsolete, And you know how the watch industry is. Like every year there's a new version coming up. But I really liked it and I really wanted to have it, but I was just not sure. So in my head, I was doing my own set of research. It's not that I was sitting idle. I was doing my own set of research. I was seeing people who have used it for 3 months. What did they think about it? People who used it for a year. What did they think about it? So I always kept an ear to the ground with regards to that particular model, that particular watch. But I don't know how long I wanted to wait for it because every day was an itch to buy it. At the same time, it was like, I was still not ready to buy it.
Yeah.
And when I finally bought it, and I did buy it after a year and a half, it was like a fantastic feeling, first of all. But then it kind of clicked to me that you really have to be patient till it becomes, it converts to an instinct for you. And it can only happen on the hindsight. Every day, up till that point where I bought the watch,
Right.
every day it was being patient for only that day
Right.
of whether or not I have a change of opinion, whether or not I've known everything that I wanted to know, whether or not I feel like being an owner of that thing. And I'm giving a very materialistic example
Yeah,
here,
sure.
right?
But it can be applied.
It can be applied anywhere.
Across the board.
Yeah, across the board. And that for me, I mean, if I remove the day I bought the watch and finally became the owner of it and blah, 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 I have no idea if tomorrow I was going to buy the watch. But I only knew this much, that I have to keep going back to it and re-evaluating that particular thought or, the need of buying the watch.
Yeah.
That for me was patience, right? Like if I lost patience at any point, either or would have happened. Either I would have bought it,
Yeah.
like immediately, fuck this shit, like let me just buy it and get done with it. Or I'm like, no, this is not the one which I want, like fuck it.
Right.
Even then, it's an outcome,
Yeah.
right? So for me, how I look at it is, I know I'm jumping the gun here. For me, it is like when it becomes instinctive or intuitional for you, where, okay, I'm absolutely sure this is what is going to happen. And it's just a matter of time when it will happen.
Right.
When you come to that point, it's no more about being patient of making the decision, right? It's being patient of now executing the decision. But what you said is so true, which is you don't know how long you have to do that.
Yeah.
You don't know till what time you have to keep grinding day in, day out about that single thought.
Right.
And that is not easy because you can misunderstand or misinterpret that waiting as something which is not in your favor.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not worth it. Maybe you get, all these kind of things happen to you.
Yeah.
That maybe I'm not worth it. Maybe I don't deserve it. Maybe I'm just like, really not thinking this through, etc., etc. But that is not patience per se. That is like you trying to get to a conclusion. You're trying to hurry up to a conclusion.
Yeah.
Which is why it is not easy when you don't know how long you have to be patient.
Yeah, that's true. In the first, it's not easy point, we called out a blind spot,
Yeah.
which people don't mention, which is that at the same time, it is contextual, different things require different levels of patience.
Correct.
In this point as well, there is another blind spot that people don't mention. And for the listeners of this podcast, anytime you come across anyone talking about patience, in your mind, please add a suffix. Always. It is not just patience, full stop. It is patience to a point.
Yeah.
Whenever someone says patience, whenever you're thinking patience, never forget about patience, yes, but only to a certain limit.
Yeah. It needs to have an expiry date.
Yes.
It has a shelf life.
Yeah, always. And people don't mention that, but you kind of have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Be aware of that patience, but to a limit.
Like how ThyGap is so patient about people donating money,
Yeah.
sending us like checks
Yeah.
of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
We are not hurrying into it. We are not
Exactly.
like rushing into it. We are patient.
We don't have like 1 million subscribers or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're totally relying
Do
on
we
word of
want
mouth.
it? Do we want it? Absolutely.
Absolutely, we want
Who
it.
doesn't want thousands
Yesterday,
of millions of
please.
You need to be impatient as the audience of ThyGap
Yeah.
to give us like the donations and funding and all those things.
Exactly. We are completely relying on word of mouth. It is just your fault that you're not being proactive enough
Yeah.
in sharing it.
On the contrary, you should appreciate us for not like filling our followers with fake profiles by marketing and stuff.
Exactly. But coming back to the
Patience part. Yeah,
patience
which is more important.
This is more important. That blind spot is patience, but to a certain extent, to a certain limit. So I kind of have a theory or a hack to suggest because this podcast is geared towards, young adults coming out into the world for the first time in the early 20s, etc. So you also might have this question like we had back then and we have even today.
Yeah.
When you're starting off on something, how exactly do you know where that limit is?
Yeah.
So the first thing, again, another blind spot, which was called out in this episode and in the wealth episode also, that limit you have to set for yourself. Please don't allow anyone else to set that limit for you.
Yeah.
Don't take anyone else's parameters and, paste them on yourself.
Yeah.
It has to come from you alone.
Correct.
What I can suggest is, I think if you think about it as a dance between your intellectual side and your, heart side, which is your mind and your heart. So
Thank you, Samhita, for giving us that vocabulary.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Mind and heart.
Yeah. So what I mean by that is your intellectual side, your analytical side wants numbers. It wants data. It wants like tangible metrics.
Yeah.
So, okay, if your goal is you're starting fitness regime or fitness goal now.
Yeah.
So by the end of next year, where do you want to see yourself? Now, you have to set this goal for yourself, but on what basis are you going to set it? If you set it without, proper research, then you're bound to fail. You're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
Right? So to satisfy your analytical side, you would have to do a lot of research now to figure out, okay, what is your workout regimen going to be? And what is your caloric intake going to be for the entire year?
Yeah.
And if you stick to that strictly, then what can you expect by the end of the year? Of course, this is something an experienced, a fitness trainer or someone can actually tell you. Or people on YouTube, they can tell you that, okay, if you do this, this is the outcome you can expect.
Yeah.
Provided you do it with discipline.
Right.
If you miss here and there, then what can you expect?
Yeah.
So this is to satisfy your analytical side. You need to absorb as much information as possible because you need to set your goals properly and not just, pull them out of your ass.
Yeah.
So that is for your analytical side. But now switching over to your heart side, what do you want to see by the end of the year? Or what is the end goal that you're looking for yourself? By when do you want to reach it ideally? So the heart then tells you what you really want deep down. And then maybe that can guide you to tweak your analytics or your metrics, etc., to figure out how to get what you really want.
But where do you think patience resides in? Like
So-
where is patience generated from?
Patience in this particular example, right? My heart could say within 6 months, I want to be ripped. Then I look at, my analytical side, I want to satisfy that. So I do all kinds of research. I get the best expert, fitness instructor, and I tell him, boss, I'll throw 50,000, 60,000 rupees on you per month. I don't care. Money is not
Throw
a
it
problem.
in ThyGap fund first.
No, but this is hypothetical.
Oh, so the dreams.
That dreams, yeah. So money is not a concern. I'll throw money on your head. 6 months, I want to be ripped. I want to be a Greek god.
Yeah.
And now that guy will sit you down and say, boss, look at where you are right now. And you're telling me this is the commitment that you can give, only 3 days a week or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're telling me you're not really sure about your discipline with fasting or
Food,
diet,
yeah,
etc.,
correct.
sleep, etc. And now you're telling me 6 months. It doesn't matter. You give me 1 crore per month also. 6 months is not going to happen.
Or if he's a fraud, he'll take the crore and like, yeah, sure.
Of
and
course.
then runs off.
But at the end of the day, 6 months is not going to happen. You know, so that reality, that truth is something that I have to accept and I have to come to terms with. And I have no choice but to be patient now, to realize that, oh, I can't really shortcut this in any way.
Yeah.
Like I have to be patient, and I'm looking at not 6 months, not 1 year. I'm probably looking at 3 years, 4 years
Yeah.
for the end goal that I want. So the dance between what my heart wants and what my mind wants, either one guides the other or the heart ultimately guides the mind or whatever. But this could be a hack. This could be a way to start off. Now, I'm not saying this is like the mantra or anything. This is just a hack that I'm suggesting. You might be able to come up with something better by yourself. And if you do, write into us.
Yeah, please. We
Yeah,
have
let
like
us know.
social channels and all. We've done the basics.
But this is what we were talking about, right, bro? It is the mystery math. Like we don't understand the calculation that goes into this.
Yeah.
Yes, I know I need to be patient for this goal, but patient till when? What is a good time for me to jump off the boat? This is exactly the problem financial investors face in the retail market. When do I sell? When do I buy?
Yeah.
So a lot of things go into that, but ultimately I feel a hack is the dance between these two.
Yeah. The theory that I have is that's because the foundations itself are weak. You know, you really don't know what your heart says versus what your mind says. And
Oh, that's
there's-
an even deeper problem.
Yeah, that is a basic problem. And which is why it is, the first point is a prerequisite where
Yes.
you categorize or, you know, you segregate different activities, different goals based on your need and wants. And again, bogus as a template, this is a blanket statement. These won't happen overnight.
Yeah.
It's a practice of making, you know, mistakes. It's a practice of hitting and missing, trial and error and all that. And over a period of time, you will get grip of the whole mechanism.
Yeah.
Right? Like any other thing.
The only thing that happens overnight is the sunrise.
Yeah.
That's about it.
that happens. We doubt that once in a while if you really believe in like alternate parallel universes and all. But yeah, like naked eye colloquial terms, overnight only thing happens is sunrise. And also ThyGap might become rich.
Might?
Depending.
No,
Will become rich provided you
Eventually.
guys participate properly.
Perseverance.
If people can participate properly, we can become rich overnight.
Of course.
Yeah. But okay.
But
you
yeah,
know,
the
serious stuff
contextual,
apart.
the contextual categorization that you talked about in the first example also, there itself you're getting prioritization.
Yeah.
You're getting, okay, what is top priority for me? What is
Correct.
medium? So that itself you can get timelines out of it.
Correct.
That will again satisfy your left brain.
Yeah. It's also like, you know, planning for your birthday celebration.
Right.
You know, I mean, a very bad analogy, but one of the things I started doing when I started working was every birthday I would buy a watch for myself. I would gift myself a watch.
Yeah.
Okay. And how I relate this to patients was there would be so many watches I would come across between birthdays that I would like, yeah, this is the one I want to buy.
Right.
Like I would have posters of it. I would have wallpapers of this shit and all.
Yeah.
And then by the time the birthday came, right, that long list of watches would filter down to one or two.
Yeah.
Eventually. And the more I started doing it, initially I used to feel bad that, oh, you know what, I made a wrong selection, or, you know, oh, I should have gone for that one. But slowly what eventually happened is I started getting more understanding of my own taste.
Yeah.
Right? I started discovering a new side of how I appreciated things.
Because you gave it time.
I gave it time, right? I let it marinate. I let myself make the wrong decisions once in a while. And, you know, I let go a few things which I really felt, okay, fine, this might have been better. And because I can't break that rule of buying a watch whenever in the middle, if I miss it on that birthday, I had to wait till the next birthday.
Yeah, that's a good credo. Yeah.
Which is where I say, like, patience is, again, that element which is not like an overnight thing. You know, it is a matter of practice. And if people, again, I want to emphasize on this, it's not a quality somebody has.
Yeah.
It is a tool somebody can use. So if you are able to use that tool properly, then it can reap you decent benefits.
Absolutely.
Right? So as an individual, I always practice on looking at patience as a tool rather than a quality. If somebody comes and tells me that, hey, dude, you're so patient about things, like, no, you don't know. Let me correct you right there. I'm not patient as a person. I'm patient in things which I feel are important for me. And if you're saying I'm a patient person, can you tell me exactly where so that I can go back and check if I have to be patient in those things or not? Right. So this is how I solve the problem of how long I have to be patient. I would make that reference point. And this is on things like I want to buy a watch, or, I will buy, like, a lot of people love shoes, right? So they wait for that sale day or whatever, right? So that is an easier problem to solve. But the other side, where I am trying to make something of myself, that is where the tricky part comes. That is where I'm like, am I so incapable of not becoming that already?
All of us feel that,
And am I not smart enough to be that already? Which is where the patience aspect has to be practiced much more harder. It doesn't just, it's not, served on a plate. You don't have a reference point. You don't have an end date. You don't have a close date or anything. So you don't exactly know how deep the tunnel goes. And it often looks like just round the corner, there's the end of the tunnel. But you take the turn and you're like, oh no, this is another whole journey. So in those scenarios, I break it down to like each day.
And patience can really be ruthless. In some scenarios, there's just no going around it. Like, if anyone has an interest, look into how farming works. How agriculture works. There's just no way they can work around it. And they have to bend to the will of, nature and patience and all that. So, that I think covers about
the other example is, if anybody wants to learn how patience works, I sincerely suggest to play a sport.
Yes.
And pick one sport, try to be good at it. Just don't play it for the sake of playing it.
No, try to compete. Winning is important.
Learn the basics.
Yes.
I was giving the example of TT, right? And TT, as easy as it looks, it's not that easy. Right? Like, if you really want to play a decent rally or anything, you net the ball, you hit it out of the table, you have to do 10,000 things which are wrong. Right? But if you really apply yourself into learning the basics, it's not to like become a champion or anything, but just to get the basics right. You will realize how much of effort it takes to actually get the ball in the right place on the other side of the net. Right? So simple things like this, racket sport, like, will actually help you to evaluate your patience. Right? Like, how long can you go with it and all. And if you can put like a 1 hour timer saying that I'll just do this for 1 hour, whether I succeed or not, in the next 10 minutes, you'll start testing yourself. You'll start knocking the doors of your patience where you're like, no, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore types.
And not only a way of evaluating your patience, but also if you're not able to be as patient as you need to be, sport is like muscle practice. It gives you the practice to increase your levels of patience.
Right.
So I think that covers the second point of, what is it about patience that it's not easy. Let's go into the third one.
Bogus, for me, now I'm going to dissect patience as an entity.
Go ahead,
To draw a picture, if I have to look at patience, it's like a DNA. You know the DNA shape, right? Which twists like two, whatever shape that is called.
It's called double helicoid or something.
Double helicoid. Thanks for reminding me. Double helicoid helicopter
all
landing. This is the toughest part about, and this is the execution part of patience. What I observed is it takes concentration and observation to, dance together.
Right.
I'll pick one of your sentences. For them to dance together, for you to execute patience in longevity. What I mean by that is anything where you have to apply patience, right? Let me go back to the definition. For me, the conscious effort of progressing and persevering in achieving something is what is patience. Right? If you're putting your mind, like your conscious mind to anything, one, it demands concentration for sure. Right? And concentration is about focus. Right? It's an absolute focus on something. But what patience will also require is for you to gather information around that activity. So that one, you start deleting the unnecessary, and two, you start concentrating better. For that, you need observation.
Right.
So if you're able to observe things how things are reacting to you, how you are reacting to things, what have changed, what have not changed, what is working in your favor, what is not being worked in your favor. If you're able to gather this information while you are concentrating on your task or activity or goal, then you are truly in that zone of being patient. And that is a very difficult state to be for a long time. Which is my theory of why we keep questioning ourselves. Because it takes a lot of concentrating in itself as an activity, very high energy activity.
Yeah.
And observation, on the other hand, is a very volatile activity. It's very easy for you to stop observing and start judging or jump to a conclusion.
Yeah.
So for you to not jump to the conclusion but still observe,
Just observe.
and gather information is going to be very tricky.
Yeah.
Now you couple both of these activities, which are complex in themselves. If that is going to make you patient, you can only imagine how tough that is to do it on the long run.
Yeah.
Right? So for you to develop a certain degree of patience, right? First you need to, according to me, develop how can you concentrate in bouts where you are able to achieve in smaller portions, which makes you move forward. At the same time, how do you also observe your own concentration so that you learn about how to do that better and ensure your movement is forward, not backward?
Right.
Because the moment you feel that you're moving back, your patience gets killed. And this is my theory of why we stop, why we become impatient very fast. Because we either stop concentrating or we either stop observing. When you don't do either or, you lose your patience. You become impatient or you become reckless or you become impulsive, right? So that is a composition of patience according to me. And that composition to be imbibed or what do you call make it a part of you.
Imbibed, yeah.
Right? For you to imbibe that composition in itself is freakishly tough.
So the dance that you're saying is these two things, observation and concentration, take turns one after the other, in the sense that when you're observing, you're not really concentrating. And when you're concentrating, you're not really observing.
It's a little difficult to put. How I would put it is you concentrate on your observation. It's a paradox. You concentrate on the observation while you're observing your concentration.
Okay.
It's a little tricky. I don't know how to put it.
To make it easy for our listeners, bro.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you.
Don't have to thank me.
I can see them leaving.
I speak for the people. I speak the language of the people.
As if this podcast was not complex enough.
Which is why I use that DNA example.
Yes.
The DNA image where both that strings are going parallelly and twisting in their own way.
They're twisting around each other.
Yeah, around each other.
Yeah.
But they're also connected with those horizontal lines.
Yes.
That's the only best way I can pictorially depict this.
That is a very good way to actually describe it. So, yeah, listeners, please do look up that image.
Yeah, search for hectagonal.
No, just search for DNA.
Helicopter landing image.
Yeah.
But you get the point, right? That is like the final nail in the coffin. If you are able to establish that in your mind or heart, wherever you're thinking from, then you will start understanding patience even better.
I get the point, but I just want to call out that these three things that we called out in this episode, it is not something that's going to sink to your bones in the first.
You need to
hear
because we have to listen to this episode 17 times at least to scratch the surface.
To go back and apply it actually.
To actually, make some form of executable, POA, plan of action.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Like if you don't get it in the first listen, it's absolutely okay. It is not that easy.
It's not a competition. You can listen to it multiple times. There are
10
no
times,
winners.
20 times.
Yeah.
But ultimately, when it does sink into your bones, then you're going to be a completely different individual.
Yeah. You might have to change your name officially.
Yeah.
At the e-Seva centers or like wherever, Aadhaar centers. But do you get the point?
I get it.
Yeah. It's a little complex.
It is.
It is kind of... when I'll tell you a story when I realized it.
Twist the noodle, as they say.
Yeah. It's when I realized it is, I've told this story a lot of times. My father used to take me to the railway station when I was a kid, and he would ask me to.
Please say that. Yeah.
When I was a kid.
It doesn't sound good. Yeah.
Yeah. My father used to take me to the railway station as a kid.
Last week.
Not last week, not today. When I was a kid.
Yeah.
And he would make me look at random people and say what do you think about that person? It was kind of like learn, decode the person by body language or whatever. it was essentially, I think if I look back, it was for me to develop like, observing body languages and reading the room kind of exercise.
In the West, parents play this game with their kids called I Spy, right? Like I spy with my eye. Like, tell me, what do you see? And the kid has to say exactly what.
Every time there's some game that an adult is playing with their kid in the West, I think of Epstein. So it's a dark place to be.
Yeah.
It's always in the room
on an island.
On an island.
Yeah.
Like at least my dad took me to a railway station where there's a lot of people outside. It was in the open. So yeah, I felt safer. But coming back to the story, Bogus, thanks a lot for digressing the story and not giving importance to me.
Yeah.
When I did that, initially I used to babble, oh, he feels angry or he's hurrying or blah, blah, like a very superficial thing. And he would always say like, yeah, but what else? What else? And eventually what happened was, on the 4th or 5th weekend, when we kept doing this, I started realizing that I'm not just looking at them anymore, but I'm really, really concentrating.
Yeah.
And every time I didn't concentrate, I would immediately observe that I didn't concentrate, and which is why my answers were far away from being right.
Yeah.
And it was not a competition, it was not a test, there was no prize at the end of the day. But that urge of being right forced me to be more patient, be, more conscious about what I was doing, kind of focusing on what I was doing. And when I look back is when I started realizing that, okay, the patience is not a question of being a quiet spectator. Patience was not a question of being tolerant and all these things.
Right.
Patience was a game of active participation while being the spectator of yourself, which is a very complex situation to be mentally, right? Like, and that is where I felt like if you're just being active participant, then also, you tend to like lose grip on the situation.
Right.
Because now you're participating. So eventually that competitiveness comes out of you. But if you're just being that silent spectator also, where you're just sitting and observing, then you are away from the game. So you need to bring that balance into that. And like I said, I can't really put it in any other way but to pictorially depict that is how they work, I believe. The concentration observation aspect works like that, where they're intertwined, they're together, yet they're so distinctly different applications for themselves.
Yeah. And that's the same way I think of that mind and heart thing that I spoke of.
Yeah.
Is that DNA thing.
Maybe that is why the DNA is shaped like that.
Who knows?
ThyGap conspiracies.
Subscribe and share. So I guess that covers the 3 points.
Yeah, that we could think of.
But there's a lot to unpack in that.
Yeah.
Do it on your own time. So
while writing to us.
Exactly.
Obviously.
So bro, with those 3 things out of the way, why is patient important at the end of the day?
Because patience is important because it's virtue.
Yes. And virtues are important.
Virtues are important.
Hence proved.
Can anybody say against this? Can anybody debunk
LHS
this?
equals to RHS.
Yeah. Like anybody debunk this cliche? Or you're looking at me as if like I have to tell a serious answer. This is a comedy podcast, because once in a while we have to keep reminding you. Yeah. I can't keep reminding you every now and then. Why is patience important? I mean, I'm not going to state the obvious where, virtue, blah, blah, blah. But at an individual level, and this is from a subjective standpoint.
Yeah.
If you learn the art of applying patience in the right activities or in the right pockets of your life, patience is like that centrifugal force in a washing machine where it brings the water in the middle and it kind of creates that centeredness to the clothes, right? Patience does that to you as an individual. And I don't see any other tool or quality doing that to you. Because patience is, like I said, because of the composition, what I just mentioned, you eventually start learning a lot of things about yourself. And when you start doing that, it only starts making you better as a person. And, if you're able to do that religiously and repeatedly, then you slowly start taking up bigger tasks. You start upskilling yourself, right, in the process.
Yeah.
And patience also helps you identify things where you lack, right, where so that you can work on that, or you'll know what is your forte, what is not your forte.
Right.
So similar to courage, similar to like integrity and all these aspects, patience is also an equally important cog for you to center your whole self, which will eventually help you become better.
Yeah. If I can simplify that.
No, you can't.
I can.
I speak the language of the people, bogus. I'm called brute for a reason.
Not in this episode, you didn't.
Yeah, every episode. We'll put that poll for this episode. Like, who speaks the language of people, bogus or brute?
Sure.
Let's put up a story. Anyhow, don't use Instagram for anything. Let's at least use it for this.
My theory on, why patience is important is it just makes things sweeter at the end of the day. Again, the caveats are the right amount of patience applied where it is required.
Yeah.
So all those, if you take into consideration, it makes things sweeter. A very simple example for that is the difference between plucking a fruit while it's raw versus waiting for it to become ripe and then taking a bite out of it. Obviously,
this is so direct example for all the Gen Zs and millennials who have never plucked a fruit in their life.
Maybe they should. Touch grass, bitches. No, but that's the direct, simple example. You wait for it to become a bit ripe. Now you're going to get a sweet tasting fruit.
Yeah.
You're actually going to get the maximum joy, the maximum happiness out of that situation. And this is the epidemic of our times, right? Like people say, loneliness is a big problem. The lack of happiness is a big problem. Of course, when they say happiness, it's an umbrella term. They're talking about contentment. They're talking about fulfillment. The lack of all of that.
They talk about acknowledgement.
All of that.
Yeah.
So if we really want to maximize those things, happiness, contentment, fulfillment, the patience is absolutely like vital to that.
It's imperative.
It's imperative to that because patience is what makes the fruit ripe from raw. Today's times, another epidemic we have is this instant gratification mindset.
Yes.
Everyone wants everything overnight.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, even if you do get it, it's just going to be like you plucking the fruit when it's raw.
And it's short-lived.
It is very short-lived. Whatever joy you have, whatever happiness you think you have, it is extremely momentary. And because you got it as soon as you wanted it, the value of that experience also is diminished for you subconsciously. Versus if you actually planned for something and if you actually set a goal and you broke that down into smaller goals and you went through the journey of tracking down these small goals along the way, managing, maneuvering, negotiating any obstacles that came down your path, and you still managed to get to your destination and you tasted success, the taste of that success is not something you can just put it in words. Language, it's not easy.
Nope. Language, in fact, it's not it's not easy.
It's impossible.
Language is useless.
It's useless.
Yeah.
Because the taste of that success has no articulation that can be possible. Like, it is so great. It is not just success that you feel. It is not just happiness that you feel. It is also joy. It is also contentment. It is also fulfillment.
Now we have to explain all these things now.
You're getting all of this in one shot. When you actually go through that journey of, point A to point B, following through your plan, a plan that you set yourself and you followed it through to the end, and now you're going to have the fruit of your success. Compare that to a guy who's born in a rich family and he wants something and the next day he gets it. He does not even feel a fraction of, the joy.
You run out of things fast.
You run out of things very quickly.
You run out of things of what will make you happy.
Yeah.
Right.
And that centrifugal force that you talked about, that patience can act like, what happens while you go through this journey and you see yourself actually executing your plans to success? It's not just that you get happiness and contentment and fulfillment and all of that, but you get evidence now. You get evidence of the fact that you set a goal for yourself and you saw yourself through to completion. And the evidence you get is that, I don't need to bother with self-doubt anymore.
Yep.
I'm now in the territory of self-belief.
Yeah.
Because I've seen myself do this. That means I can keep doing this. That means now I can plan for bigger things.
Yeah.
And I have the formula, which is I set the metrics myself and I just persevere through it.
Yeah. And this was your so-called simplified version of
No, simplified thing is the fruit thing.
You should have mentioned that, bogus. I mean, bogus, see, let's put it this way. At the end of the day, you should be able to tell yourself it was worth the wait.
Yes.
And when I say weight, it's not the kilos. It is the weight.
The weighting.
WAIT. Yeah. Okay, just so that we are clear on
exactly,
that.
Yeah.
So if you are able to tell that honestly to yourself that, it was worth the wait, I finally reached where I wanted to reach and all, then you can confidently say, if you look back and look into yourself, you'll see that you're much more confident, you're much more assured. You start realizing you have lesser dependencies on people's validation or gratitude,
absolutely.
all that.
Yes.
So it is so weird that, how patience can help you do that, but provided you apply yourself to it.
Yeah.
And for that, you need to start off with the simple fact of don't give it a blanket statement.
Yeah.
Don't use it as a blanket thing like, oh, be patient. No, if anybody says that, question it. Like for me, it's always about questioning things like from the word go, not taking it for the face value,
Yeah, I would say you don't even have to question it. Like if anyone says that, you add these.
Walk away from them.
You add these
talk to the hand.
caveats or the blind spots that we called out in this episode.
No, but also again,
you add them mentally. Like, oh, let me remember. It's that guy is saying patience as a blanket statement, but I know that there's other things.
No, correct. But see, if you're talking about someone, I mean, put ourselves back when we were in early 20s. The best, you might not have these caveats.
Right.
It might be difficult for you to pictorially understand these caveats. So the hack to that for me is always question it. Like when somebody say like be patient, and like in what?
So are you saying question them or question
them.
it yourself?
Question them.
Okay.
Because you don't know the answer or you don't know the direction.
Okay.
I can say it's subjective and this worked for me.
It is subjective.
I'm not saying that it might work for everybody. What worked for me was always to question it without any prejudice.
Right.
Without trying to prove a point.
Question it also could mean that you're questioning it yourself.
Yeah,
You're analyzing
it goes
yourself.
both ways.
I agree with that.
Yeah, because when you start listening to an answer, you invariably have the tendency of trying to like, do I agree with it, or is there another version to this?
Yeah.
Do I think otherwise, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But if you don't question it, you don't trigger that answer even in yourself.
Yeah, where I slightly differ subjectively is with the question them part. In the sense, because it's a waste of time, I feel, because they're not going to have the answer for that, most likely.
Which is, if you don't have the habit of questioning yourself, the easiest way to start doing it is by voicing it out.
Okay.
And, we can't really explain it to be very practical. And
it's two different perspectives.
Yeah,
it's fine, yeah.
I feel that we don't sit in a room and like, wonder what patience is. We don't do that at 20s or, we question it only. I always used to look out for a chance to question something, and I don't know what I would want to question now, right? So when these things came up, in a course of conversation, or when some elderly person is giving you free GAN in a function,
right?
I would use that as an opportunity to question it, right? So again, like it's absolutely subjective. Everybody like 10,000 ways to the top of the pyramid.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. Don't take it to the face value. At least that has to be an attitude in itself of, okay, I'm not going to take it for what it is. Let me just dig it a little deeper. Like how we did it in the etymology. When we saw the second layer of the meaning,
firm,
we are like,
unyielding,
makes sense.
Hard.
Right, right. It makes sense. So this is completely different to what the blanket statement says.
Yeah.
So it's worth going to that second degree is what I meant.
And that, I would say, brings us to the culmination of this particular episode. It is not easy. I don't mean patience. I don't mean the topic. I mean the episode itself.
Yes.
It's not something that is going to get done in the first listen.
Yeah. And in the heavens lawn, Dostoevsky, Khalil Gibran, and JK are debating on this episode as we speak. In the heaven lawn. So
be patient with it. Come back to it at different times. It may give you different things.
See, ThyGap episodes are like a book bogus.
Yeah, the English
Every
podcast.
time, the English podcast. Every time you listen to it, you get something new.
You get something new.
Yeah, we are like the substitute for books. People who don't have the patience to read books, they have to listen to ThyGap podcast.
Yeah, we are packing these a lot more tighter than usual 1 hour podcasts or anything. So
yeah, you have no idea.
Definitely do keep coming back to this.
When the Patreon comes, you'll get the real juice.
Of course.
With the pulp.
Yeah, that goes without saying. But do let us know what you thought of it. And if, this conversation brought about newer questions or different perspectives, which even we might find useful or interesting. And where do you do that, Brute? On Instagram, we are
@_ThyGap.
On Twitter and Vero.
@ThyGap.
And our email is
mindthygap@gmail.com.
Perfect. Those are our socials. And also Spotify has recently started this Q&A
Yeah.
section in their app. So
Yeah.
if you want, you can leave us a...
For all the extroverts who like to be read,
Yeah.
who like to be known.
You can give your 2 cents, scribble down something there as well.
Yeah.
So that is why, ladies and gentlemen, we say patience. It's not easy.
It's not easy at all. Not at all easy.
No.
Have you not heard the episode? It's the whole episode we did.
Listen
So
to it
why it's not
again.
easy. Yeah, again. Go back.
Wait for it.
Patiently.